Hi guys and welcome. This is Jen Gaeta Siciliano, artist, memoir writer, bipolar psychiatric survivor, and your host of Not As Crazy As You Think podcast, the place that offers an alternative perspective on mental illness, highlighting creativity, non-conventional healing, and breaking on through to the other side. If you are ready for a new narrative on the mental realm that celebrates crazy and cool without penalty, then Not As Crazy As You Think is for you. Hello, this is Jen Gaeta Siciliano, your host of Not As Crazy As You Think podcast. Thank you for listening once again. Today, we have one of the most amazing guests, and I'm so thrilled she could be here. Her name is Angie Peacock. She is a former U.S. Army sergeant and subject of the film Medicating Normal. Diagnosed with PTSD after one deployment to Iraq in 2003, she was overmedicated for it for over a decade and a half. She is a mental health advocate, writer, and YouTube creator who travels in her campervan across the United States with her service dog Raider in an effort to improve the mental health care system for veterans and civilians alike. She's an enormous inspiration. I'm so thrilled she could be here. Angie, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me, Jen. I'm excited.
Oh my gosh. So you're a major player on the film's outreach team. And this film is huge for me because it's basically the first time anybody has come through and forward and saying, look, this is real and this is going on and this has been going on my whole life, but nobody was listening. So it's really, you're giving empowerment to so many people. You facilitate more than 175 post-screening panel discussions with communities worldwide. And I understand that they're all different people in the audience, from consumers to mental health professionals, which is really rare to have those two groups together having a conversation. And you've gone to universities and shown it to students in medical programs. So can you tell us about this path of yours and a little about the film as well?
Oh man, that's a big question. All right. So in a nutshell, basically, I grew up in St. Louis, Missouri. I was from a poor background. I needed, I really enjoyed like a life of meaning, adventure, getting out there and seeing really cool things, experiences. I've always been like that. So the military was an easy option. So basically, I joined the military. I was sexually assaulted while I was in the military. And then a year later, I deployed to Iraq. And just all those multiple traumas back to back to back caused me to seek help, because that's what you're told. Like when you are, you're traumatized or you need help, go seek help. That was the worst decision I ever made, because what followed after was I lost my career. I lost my marriage. I lost my femininity, my sexuality, everything. I was on 18 drugs at the same time, psychiatric drugs at the height in 2006. Basically it was 15 years of try this med, this one doesn't work, go up a dose, go down a dose, switch to this one, switch to that one. And just inside of me, I just got tired of it. I was like, I should feel good if I'm taking all this medication and I'm going to all these mental health professionals. Why am I not feeling good? This doesn't make any sense. So long story short, after 15 years, I just got tired of it and disillusioned with the system. And I came off of everything, sometimes slowly, sometimes not. It took me a really long time. And that last drug that I tapered off almost killed me. And it was under medical supervision. And in that period of time, these documentary filmmakers found me as I'm coming off this drug and have like intense suicidal and homicidal thoughts, like couldn't stand up in the shower, didn't speak for 4 months, had to reteach myself how to read, like traumatic, horrific, the worst suffering I've ever experienced in my entire life. Oh my gosh. They found me during that process and basically followed me for 3 years while I was coming off and while I was healing from the experience. And they created this amazing film about it. The film is now going to be on PBS in January. And yeah, like you said in the bio, we've done 180 audiences now.
Wow.
Ranging from people still on medications, people thinking about going on them, parents with children on them, elderly people that are on them, veterans, their caregivers. We've done therapists. They seem to be one of the better audiences. They're very open to this and they see it in their practice. What else? We've done medical conferences with psychiatrists. We just did 50 psychiatrists in the UK that work for the same trust. Everything, from people that have no clue this exists to people that have been through it like you and I, And it's just been validating. We've had very little pushback. It's really surprising. But yeah, I mean, there's so many avenues you could take there, but that's basically it in a nutshell.
I can't believe that, mental health professionals are very open to this.
They are.
Is it that, do you get any pushback from the psychiatric mental health professionals, or is it just like, because this is challenging their entire system?
Yeah. Well, I think we should identify what we mean by this. Okay. This means people like me and you go for mental health treatment. We have legitimate diagnoses. We have legitimate trauma. We have symptoms. We go for help. We get the help. The help hurts us. That is really hard pill to swallow. That, like, what do you mean? We're throwing all this money into mental health care. Like, when you need help, you go to a professional, you call the 1-800 number, you get on meds, you go, that's the narrative. We're saying that, yes, we did all that and it hurt us. And so, yes, for a psychiatrist to think I've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on my medical education and you're telling me that I'm hurting some of my patients, I can't sleep at night knowing that.
Yeah.
Well,
because they got into it for the right reasons, to help people.
Yeah.
I mean, they don't want to, feel like what they're doing is inflicting all this pain.
Yeah.
I know that you've said before not to blame the doctors, okay, and that they're victims of the system as well. But their stubborn adherence to the biomedical model, okay, and this psychopharmacology that they were taught in med school, it perpetuates the problem for decades. Okay. I've been dealing with this for decades. So it's like going to continue if they don't start, helping us change the mainstream perspective on this, but they have to be convinced first. And, how are they going to be convinced only from their patient stories if they consider us mentally ill?
That's the whole problem. Yes. Well, I want to say something before I go into the mentally ill problem.
Yeah.
That, like, this is the tool I definitely see in all these screenings, is that I just saw it last week. I had to edit a video and I saw it so clearly the way he did it. It was, the psychiatrist gets defensive because we're telling him something that goes against what he believes. Okay. And so his tool for that was, oh yeah, well, what about psychology? They also harm patients. Or we don't do it like that here at my practice. Or there's some really good psychiatrists out there. Okay. But the whataboutism does not, does not tackle the people that are being harmed. So the problem is I want to say to him in the middle of a screening, hi, doctor, you're feeling something very uncomfortable inside of you that's making you move away from what you just saw. Can we talk about that instead of saying, what about?
Right.
You can't do that in a screening. I can't do that in a screening. So
I think I saw that screening.
You might have. Don't say which one.
I'm not going to say.
I don't want to rat him out, but he did that 3 times. And then, it bothers me. And same thing happened like when we did a screening in another country. They said, oh, they do that in the US, but not here. Right. But then the psychiatrist that was actually an ally of ours, he said, it's easy for you to say that, but I want to assure you that our country's prescribing rates are the same amount as the US. They have gone up because of the pandemic, because people are, showing up with anxiety and depression, which they very well should be. There's a deadly virus that could kill you. Mm-hmm. You should have anxiety. It's normal.
Right.
So no, that is a defensive tactic to not see that we have the same problem here in our system.
Right. And the UK, they have like a major issue over there as well, right? It's like 25% of all people are on medication.
It's the same. And the sad part is doing this. I see it in Brazil. I see it in Mexico, Afghanistan, India. You don't even need a prescription in India. You can go over the counter and just grab some Xanax anytime you want.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's worldwide. And if you think about let me take you back a step. If these medications worked so great, why are our disability rates the highest they've ever been? And why are the suicide rates the highest they've ever been? And why teen suicide rates? Think about all of these people that are disabled. Right. They're taken out of the workforce. They're taken out of their communities. They're in poverty. Social security check is what, like $1,100 to $1,500 a month. You can't live on that. So think about the society-wide, worldwide impact of telling someone there's something wrong with you. You're broken. You got to take this medicine every day for the rest of your life, and kind of just leave you on your own. I know for me, I lived alone. I didn't have family members. I didn't have a partner. I'm like literally sitting in a basement, like eating cookies all day, watching TV, and just feeling like total shit about myself.
Yes.
That's no life.
No
life. So anyway, yeah, the impact is worldwide.
Yeah. And, it's funny because the reason why it's worldwide is because it's science, or they say it's science, right?
it goes outside of any kind of cultural boundaries. And this Western, kind of like hijacking that they have all throughout the world, it's only causing problems. I remember when I was first put on, and my situation was such that I wasn't seeking help. I just had a breakdown because I had this near-death experience, and then I was sick in India and whatnot. So when I came home, I had a breakdown, and I just always thought that if somebody had a conversation with me about what actually happened, it would be clear as to why I had the breakdown. Yeah. But they didn't discuss what happened until 10 years later. So I'm like, well, I knew right away that what they were saying, what they were doing was opposite what they were actually doing. They were not helping me. They were harming me immediately. I was, so, on top of the world with all my stuff and, just like succeeding. And I was like doing an off-Broadway show in the city. And I was, I just graduated top of my class. And then all of a sudden they came in and they just completely told me that you are incapable and you better let all your dreams go. And I'm thinking, of course I'm incapable. You've just disabled me on all these drugs. Do they really believe that this is helping people?
They do, I think.
You got your master's in social work and you were even considering going into the system, and then you ended up going in the way of outreach. Now, that decision was clearly motivated by this as well.
It was traumatizing going through social work school, having the experiences that I've had and hearing budding mental health professionals talk the way they do about people with mental health symptoms, like humanizing. It was very belittling, like those other people that we have to treat because they need our help and because I know better and I'm the expert. That is just, that base assumption right there is so wrong. It's very top-down power, meaning like, I know better than you do. You can't possibly know anything about your life. And that really ties into what we were saying earlier about, when there's two things here. When people see you through a mental illness perspective, like, oh, you're just bipolar, or, oh, you're PTSD and you're just a disgruntled vet. You can't, anything that you say is already like questioned. Like, oh, you don't possibly, you have lack of insight, Right. It's like you're seen through this filter and anything you say is discredited automatically.
Right.
Yeah. The other thing is, so if you go to your doctor and you say, I'm on this medication, I'm experiencing these severe side effects, like I lost my sexuality, what is going on? I'm having these like brain zaps. Immediately they're like, oh no, you can't possibly be experiencing that. It's like, there's not a bottom up listening pipe. We're not even believed. We're not. So I experienced gaslighting for like at least the last 15 years. Partly it was like my sexual dysfunction came up. I know I'm getting real personal here, but basically I didn't feel sexual at all. And I was like, what is going on? Like, I know I should like guys. I'm in my 30s and I'm supposed to be having babies now, So I'm like looking around and I was like, okay, well, maybe I'm a lesbian. Maybe that's what's going on. And so I start looking at women. Nope, that's not it. Like, there's no feelings there. So I went to my mental health professional and I told them I lost my sexual feelings. And they told me, oh, well, that was your trauma. And now I know, no, it wasn't my trauma. That was a side effect of antidepressants.
Right.
And it's a thing. And there's journal articles about this. Yes. And there's scientific evidence that shows you can get permanent sexual dysfunction for the rest of your life from taking antidepressants. And we don't know who that's going to happen to. So here I am 15 years later. I still don't have sexual feelings back. I do every once in a while, but it's very minute and it's nothing like it was when I was young. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, just not being believed. Oh, you can't possibly be experiencing benzo withdrawal. I had somebody in my medical records, a psychiatrist wrote, patient believes she's experiencing benzo withdrawal and that brings her comfort. Like, I'm freaking delusional. I'm delusional. And this is after, this is so funny. I'm in a master's program at one of the top medical universities in the world. And I'm bringing my doctor journal articles that talk about benzodiazepine withdrawal. He just took me off of them 2 weeks ago. I'm wearing my sweatshirt that says wash you on it. And he's writing in my record that I'm fucking delusional. Like, you're delusional. Gosh. But listen, that's the cognitive dissonance. How could he sleep at night knowing that he hurt me? And I'm sitting in front of him yelling at him like, you are almost killed me. Like, you don't understand. So yeah, that's kind of what we're up against. That this whole segment of the medical profession believes their patients to be mentally ill, broken forever, need to take meds for the rest of their life. You can't listen to anything they say. They're totally discredited. And that's that. And that's the end of the story.
That is the end of the story.
We don't really care what you have to say.
No, the only way, and this was my experience too, the only way to move forward is to break away from the system. Yeah. I know what these medications long-term can do to you. I mean, they say like it knocks off like 15 years off your life, right?
20 to 25 if you're on antipsychotics. Yep.
That's what I was on. So it's like, I'm thinking to myself, like, okay, everyone's so afraid of the COVID thing. And I'm thinking, I literally am directly hurting myself in the same way that I could have an early death, if I don't get myself off these things. But as you, and as the film so beautifully illustrates, this is not easy.
No.
This need of yours to, I guess, find help in any kind of way, mental health involvement, and you chose the psychiatry because we have been conditioned that they are the experts. Yeah. You were really dealing with things that were completely normal. If you are a vet and you mentioned that you were dealing with stressful situations every day, like being shot at by convoys, just driving around in dangerous areas in Baghdad, and your head was constantly scanning for something dangerous. This blew my mind because I'm thinking, why didn't they start there? You know what I mean? Like having that conversation, they just went right away into, here's your Klonopin.
Right, exactly. No, recently, it's funny you bring that up because recently I heard this evolutionary biologist say that the human being is very adaptable and changeable, like very quickly. Like we can adapt to cold, to heat, to ice, to little food, to keto diet, to, like eating meat only. Like we are so changeable. And that's how we are as a species. And that's how we've evolved to continue our, species. So in other words, in the light of post-traumatic stress, you are very adaptable to a dangerous situation to keep yourself safe and alive. However, you don't change back so easily. So the way I look at post-traumatic stress now, and this is not just from war, this is from domestic violence, from poverty, from racism, from whatever, pick your trauma, that you learn that certain things are dangerous. And you have to do certain things that look like mental health symptoms to keep yourself alive. However, when you get out of that situation, it's not so easy to be like, okay, I'm safe now. Everything's good. I don't have to scan my surroundings. I don't have to, sleep with my hand with a gun under my pillow. I don't have to lock all my doors and check them 5 times to make sure, somebody's not going to come after me. So that's the problem. So I look at it more as like a fear learning. Yeah. You learn to keep yourself alive. It's not a disorder. It's not a disease that landed on you. Right. It's not.
That's right. So, if anything, it's like it's caused you to adapt successfully to a hardcore situation.
Yes.
And then, it's almost like, okay, now you have to relearn how to relax. You know what I mean? But there's so many other ways to go about doing that.
And I wish in the beginning somebody would have said, you just went through a very intense situation. And I'm saying this to the audience members too that are listening. So however you're feeling right now is exactly how you should be feeling. Your body's trying to keep you safe, and it's intense, and the suffering is real, and you might not ever feel like you did before. Like, just be honest about that. Right. Like, we don't know everything we think we know. We know neuroscience says we know less than 2% about the brain. Psychiatry acts like we know everything. There's a pill to fix it. It's ridiculous. The hubris.
So ridiculous. It's embarrassing. I mean, see, this is, I have so little patience with them because I'm like, really? The last time I was in, they were writing that I was delusional because I kept telling them I was actually directing a play, okay, in Westchester County. And it was like a 5-person play. And I was involved with, I was the director. So I had to deal with all these people. Yeah. They wouldn't let me get in touch with them. And they kept writing in my records, she thinks she's a director. I'm like, okay, what do you think? I'm like walking around here like, I'm a Broadway director.
I know a guy who was diagnosed with schizophrenia because he told them he didn't need to go to filmmaking school because he was a filmmaker. And they literally said, you are schizophrenic. And he was like, no, I really am a filmmaker. I made a movie. Go look at it. It's on YouTube. And they would not believe him.
Oh my God. This is what I'm saying. Like the facts, they always say that there's evidence-based medicine in psychiatry, right? But they only look at certain facts that back up the approach that they want to take. And, to me, that's just, it's not science. When you try to get off these medications, okay, we are getting more and more information from all these people who have done it, and many have done it the wrong way, and many are trying to do it the right way. I mean, right now, I'm lucky enough to have not experienced anything so far. That's not to say I'm not going to have a tough time at the end, especially since I've been on them so long. So I'm trying in many ways to have all of these other supports, you know what I mean? And that's been successful on many levels. And I'm trying to document that so that hopefully it can help others one day. But as I said, I don't know what's going to happen because they know that these people are having such trouble. The few times I did try to get off and I had what they consider a relapse, is really your reaction to the fact that the medication isn't there and now your brain's doing all fucked up shit. Okay. Yeah. Their whole story is just so anti-patient.
Yeah. It's dehumanizing. It's just really othering, like you're some alien with a diagnosis who needs to take their meds. It's very I can't ever say that word. Infantilizing. Meaning like, we're the parent, you're the child. It's okay. They're there. Take your pills, go in the hospital when you're suicidal. The whole system is just totally screwed, and unfortunately, this is the part that keeps me awake at night. I do meet people that say meds saved my life. I have the best therapist ever. I just had a conversation with a teenager last night and I was asking her like, why is teen suicide so big? And then she revealed to me she's on an antidepressant. And then I got really worried about that. Like, oh my God, what happens when she gets out of high school and she wants to have a baby and she breastfeeds? Like, I have women come to me all the time like, oh my God, how do I get off of this? I want to have a kid and I don't want to be on antidepressants because I read that antidepressants can cause withdrawal symptoms in infants when they come out of the womb, all these like really scary things. Anyway. And I was one of these people that believed 6 years ago, if you would ask me, what do you think about your meds? I would have said, they helped me. They saved my life. Don't you ever tell me that I need to come off of them, So I meet these people every day in the film screening and I'm like, thank God they work for you now. However, tomorrow could be a different day. 10 years from now could be different. When you're 60, I know a woman who's in her 70s and her daughter texted me and said, oh my God, I just found out my mom her Zoloft dose was doubled. She's also on a benzo. She's got COPD and emphysema. She keeps falling. I'm like, of course she's falling because she's on these powerful anticholinergic drugs. And these are actually on the list for elderly people not to take.
Oh my
But you can't take somebody off of a benzo if they've been on it for 40 years when they're in their 70s. They're going to fall, break their hip and die.
Yeah.
Like it's not. So what I'm trying to say is like, drugs might work for a short period of time. That is in the literature. They do say short-term use, they work. However, their short-term use is 8 to 12 weeks. That's what they study. They don't study beyond that. So if you're on an antidepressant, antipsychotic, a sleeping medicine, a migraine preventative, and you're on 4 drugs at the same time, and you've been on them for 10 years, nobody knows what that does. Nobody knows how to get you off of them. Nobody's going to really help you when you try to get off of them. And that is the sad reality. And if your meds are working for you right now, I'm so freaking happy for you. However, we change, our bodies change, our hormones change, we age, we want different things in our life. We have different goals. So it's not a permanent situation if they're working for you now. And I know that is scary, and I'm sorry for bringing you the reality of the situation, but that's what it is.
Well, I'm happy you are willing. And that's one of the things I was so impressed about with you is because you are willing to say it like it is, because that is the case. Okay. That is the truth. We're put on these things and then we're left to hang dry. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, okay, well, now what? I remember, and the thing is, the labels are what is so detrimental, because when they gave me the label of bipolar disorder, well, that's the sentence. That and schizophrenia, those are the 2 sentences to life, because they want to point to some study that they did in the Amish back in the day about how they think it's genetic. And I'm just like, you know what? If anything, what's genetic, or I should say what we inherit, are psychic problems. You know what I mean? Like from our energy, from the families, you know what I mean? Like what's taught throughout and what your grandfather had to suffer. And, like all these things that's what you inherit. And the fact that they just break everything down into genes, and then they just start with that. And then they look for evidence to support it for decades. And in other words, the evidence did not point them in that direction. They've made the decision first that this is what it is, and then they look for the evidence, and they'll keep looking for evidence. I mean, you can find any facts to back up any opinion if you really think about it. And the fact that all of the research is put in this in this direction, we're only going to be helped by people like yourself and like the filmmakers who have put this together, Lynn Cunningham and Wendy Radcliffe. I'm just so happy that you guys are doing this because, you know, now I've been talking on this podcast for a year. I wrote a book over 10 years. Okay. And it's still not published. And I'm like, oh my God, like maybe because you are out there finally getting the word out, that shift can maybe create an opening for all of our other stories to get out there. Because what's happening is they don't even want to touch these stories because it's like, oh, a mentally ill person is trying to tell her story. You know what I mean?
It's so taboo. You're saying, I'm saying I had a mental illness diagnosis. I had several. Also, you don't know this, Jen, but I also have a bipolar diagnosis. Of course, it was like given to me after a 15-minute talk, and the guy knew my father, and my dad has bipolar. So they were like, "Oh, well, because we know your dad, you're bipolar because your genes," which
automatically,
it's absolute BS. Just so the audience knows, like anything that shows up in your life, I think genes have like 2 to 5% to do with it. The rest of it is your environment. So, like you said, you know, not only do you pass on genes, but you also pass on bad habits. You pass on trauma. You pass on dysfunctional patterns in the family. You're more likely to get symptoms from that than you are from the genes. They don't have a gene for bipolar. There's no such thing. You can go look for a gene for schizophrenia. It doesn't exist.
Right. It's such bullshit because it's like they could just pull out every single person walking on the face of this earth. If they looked up the descriptions in the DSM, they would see themselves. I mean, at least, I only have one diagnosis, but that, I mean, like I said, that's a hardcore one. That's all you need. Yeah. But, you know, like everyone, I mean, I'm sure I have at least 3 more, you know what I mean? Based on their little story.
Yeah. I say right now, I have about 7. I meet DSM criteria for post-traumatic stress, probably bipolar, probably, obsessive compulsive disorder. I have lots of like thoughts that are very repetitive and stuff like that. Generalized anxiety disorder, panic disorder with agoraphobia, major depressive disorder. So yeah, I meet criteria for 7 right now. And I just choose not to identify with that. I'm not going to run to a mental health professional and tell them all my problems and think that they're going to do anything about it. Like it's the same. It's like everything looks like a nail and I'm a hammer and here's some meds and you need to go to therapy. And this is funny. Recently, I put up an article on our Medicating Normal Facebook page and it was about like CBT therapy or something. And somebody wrote a comment in the bottom and he basically alluded to for therapists to think that they can just like fix a little piece of your thinking and like magically your whole life is better. It's just ridiculous.
It's embarrassing.
It's bad. So, I just can't rely on that system anymore to help me. I have tons of issues. I am by no means healed. My life looks pretty bad, probably from the outside, you know, but I just deal with it.
I don't think so. You're amazing. Look at what you're doing.
You only see what I want you to see.
Yeah, but you know what? That's called being a human. And
yes,
you know what I mean? Like we have lost compassion. We have lost our way of giving others like any kind of listening ear and a compassionate like heart, you know, with what they go through. I mean, you know, back in the day, I guess maybe people would reach out to their priests or something like that. And, you know, over the course of time, we've lost faith in those things too, many of us. And, you know, but I look back and I'm thinking to myself, if only I had a few people who would have just listened to my story, you know what I mean? It wouldn't have been this nightmare life. I mean, they destroyed my life. I only feel like I'm getting back my life within these last few years. If they have that much power to say, you know, who should have a good life and a normal life and who should have a shit ass life because they've gone through some stuff and because they literally create a more difficult life because of these medications. Life is difficult on these medications. And that's one of the things too. Like, I really feel like they take away your free will.
Yeah.
And that agency, the sense that you have, some control over, you have a thought and then you can implement an intention and then follow through with actions to create those things, maybe manifest them. All those things are taken away on the medication. And because the doctors don't have proper input, because they don't really give any credence to what the patients are saying, they don't realize how difficult life is on these things. And that in taking away those things, you're enslaving half of the population, or the population that's taking them. You're enslaving them into this idea of, I can't live without being dependent on this patriarchal, approach to dealing with suffering. I never believed in that shit. But when they take over your life, there's nothing you can do. I remember trying to be such a good little girl and like do everything that they told me to. And I was just like, well, if I'm really good, that they'll see that and that'll go on my record as being, compliant and all this. Never adds up to anything positive, because you lose yourself more and more throughout the whole thing.
Yeah. I think the most worrying part for me was, I went from remember, I was like a high functioning U.S. Army sergeant. I had troops underneath me. I'm leading them in a combat situation. We didn't kick doors down or shoot anybody. Okay. But I'm literally driving them through Baghdad, making sure everybody's safe. What we say in the military, I was responsible for the health and welfare of 6 soldiers. That's the way we say it. I'm responsible for your life. I went from that to mental health patient overnight. Boom, you're done. You're out of the military. I literally remember laying on my couch, just staring at the ceiling oh my God, what am I going to do with my life now? I'm disabled. I'm 24, but every year, think about this. This is the depth of, I don't know, disempowerment. Okay. Every day you're taking a medication. It's in a little strip and you have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and you open every day and you're taking all these pills every single day. Once a week, you got to report to your therapist and tell them what's wrong with you. On the way there, you're thinking of all the things you're going to tell them. I told that to the teenager last night. I said, don't tell me you don't do that. She's like, yeah, I do that. I said, that's reinforcing that you're looking for bad things in your life. You're not telling her what's going well, Then, every month you get 15 minutes with a psychiatrist for a med check. He doesn't ask you about how's your social life? What are you doing? Do you have a partner? Do you have what are your goals for 2022? They don't ask you that. It's, how are your meds doing? What are your side effects? Okay, well, let's just ignore those. Let's add another drug because you're still depressed. That's the depth of that. So when you do that year after year, you get new diagnoses, you get new medications. It's all this self-reinforcing message that there's something wrong with you. You're broken. You're dependent on the system. Your benefit check comes from going to the doctor. Stop going, they'll take you off. Yeah. So that's what we call mental health. It's not.
No,
it's not.
No.
I mean, I still I'm 6 years off of drugs. Okay. I have not even taken a Tylenol in 6 years. I just recently in the last 20 days had to take an antihistamine and I was terrified because I had a rash and I had no choice. I was like, I am in so much pain. I got to take something. Yeah. But what was I going to say? Joe, that message is still in me, that there's something wrong with me, that I need somebody outside of myself to help me with that this feeling that I'm having is wrong and I shouldn't be feeling this, or I'm scared of this depth of emotion. Oh my God, what am I going to do? Oh my God. Thank God I have peers to help me through those situations, but it's not a thing that you easily just take off like this coat of, disempowerment. It's there for a really, really long time. Yeah.
So you're in your 30s now?
42.
Oh, you look good.
Thank you.
So 42. Okay. So you dealt with this for 2 decades.
Yeah, I'm going on 2 decades now. My first medication was 2003. So it'll be 20 years of either being on medication or healing from medication in a year and a half. Yeah.
People don't realize how much this affects you. I mean, and this happened only 2017. So it'll be 6 years or something like that. It happened in March, put under their, forced abuse again. And from that point, because my parents were so brainwashed. Yeah. They bought in and I became so highly traumatized, traumatizing on every level. And I had to cut off my relationship with them, much like, and this is where it was interesting because when the Britney Spears thing happened, I was like, oh my God, finally people could see, look at someone like her could even be, people blame Jamie a lot, her father, but her father was brainwashed.
Yeah.
I mean, there's always levels, but when money's involved, there's always other levels. But the thing is, you can't, I look at my parents now and I'm thinking, they believe in the authorities. This is what they told them to believe about their kids. So all of these parents are also, victims of the system, and that it's destroying families.
Yeah, it is. We see that a lot. We see parents that, it's so sad. They say, Angie, we're not offered any alternative. We're told if your teen is having a crisis, you take them to the doctor. I take them to the emergency room. Next thing I know, I'm being swept down the hall. Your kid needs to be on meds. This is their diagnosis. It's terrifying. We're scared. We don't know what else to do. There's no alternative. So I did what they told me to do. And then 10 years later, the kid is got a serious diagnosis like schizophrenia or psychosis or whatever. They're living with the parent. The kid is on tons of meds. He's never done well. And they're like, what did I do? Oh my God, I totally screwed up this kid's life because I didn't know.
Yeah.
But then I do see immense healing where the parent will take the kid off drugs very slowly. They get a job, they're getting their life back, but you lose decades with your family members and you live in a state of fear that, oh my God, is this going to be this way forever?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's really sad.
That fear is just constant and long lasting, and people don't realize. I mean, the thing is, it's like you're up against a system that has so much power that they could literally put you away and medicate you harmfully. Shouldn't health related things isn't it do no harm? Wasn't that part of the teaching?
I know. The last psychiatry appointment I ever attended, which was in 2017, I basically just told my psychiatrist, thank you for your trying to help me, but you almost killed me. And I'm done with your services. I don't want to come here ever again. And I walked outside of the hospital. It was a VA hospital in Columbia, Missouri. I crossed the street. There was a little patch of grass. I sat on the grass and I cried. And I was like, oh my God, it's over. It's over. And then immediately I had the realization, Angie, you can't cry in public like this across from a hospital. They're going to come get you. And I had immediate, the fear in me because, veterans have killed themselves in the parking lot of a VA hospital, multiple times as a protest, to say, you guys don't help me, So I'm like, you can't cry across from the VA hospital. Oh my God, are you crazy? So it's I couldn't even have that moment of relief, of closure. Because I'm afraid they're going to come get me and put me on the 4th floor again.
Right.
It's horrific. I'm so sorry that you went through that too.
I feel sorry also for you because I know exactly what this is. I know what it is. And that's why I think I have such respect and awe really of watching you with all these other people because, you're communicating with respect also, because you also understand how they're being taught. Yes. Okay. Because you had that. So that's really a great, insight for you and being able to conduct these panels. But also there's this sense that you are representing.
Yes.
And definitely. Thank God, because, there's this sense that they still are out there with they know, okay, well, yes, these are the problems, but we're the better ones, we handle it differently. But these people are few and far between. I mean, this is not the overriding, consensus as to how to manage these affairs.
Yeah. I mean, it's a constant state of walking a line between I'm a patient and a user of services that was very harmed by them. And I'm also a trained mental health professional, and I'm trying to communicate with them from their frame of reference and to be respected enough. I have to use my letters to get into places, even though I don't want to, but they won't listen to me unless I have these letters. Right. So I have to go get them, but I thank God for our filmmakers because they've both made it a point. All of these panels have to have someone with lived experience, period.
Yes.
Because we've had a few panels where there wasn't me or someone else there and it went horribly wrong.
Wow.
There's also been times where I've been on the panel and the mental health professional on the panel, this hasn't happened for a while, but they literally tried to diagnose me again on a panel discussion.
Stop.
So I swear to you, I get so triggered. I can't even tell you. We have a teammate, her name's Nicole, and she does a lot of the interviews. Yeah. Nicole Lamberson, she's great. Yeah. And I'll literally while this panel is going, I'll start texting Nicole, help me. I'm going to lose it, So it's this restraint. How dare you put me in a patient role? I'm not your patient. You've known me from a film. You saw an edited film that is like a fraction of my life. And you have the audacity to like try to diagnose me and tell me what's best for me on a panel discussion. This is the sickness right here.
This is the problem.
This is it. You're putting me in a role that I didn't even give you permission to put me in. So yeah, sometimes it's been extremely hard and it's draining. And I feel like I'm repeating myself. Like I'm saying the same things over and over and over again, but these people have never heard it. So I have to.
Right. You have to just keep saying it because there's people who are watching it for the first time and they need to hear it all the time. They need to hear this.
Yeah.
I do appreciate the fact that there are mental health professionals on these panels because I'm thinking to myself, now they have to explain themselves. They're being held accountable. And the trauma that's still there is the absolute negation of my individualism through what they think is normal and abnormal. I mean, I'm an artist, so in the art community, I'm actually one of the normal ones. I mean, like there's like crazy people, what I mean? But that's how we are. And that's just the artistic personality type.
What makes you beautiful.
Exactly. That's how we create, we go into those weird spots and we come out with something great on the other side. But so I really have this problem with this overriding feeling that they want to, blame the individual and not look at the faulty systems. This narrative has to completely be rewritten. And I know that you've come across so many people who have alternative views as well. I mean, What are some of the alternative narratives developing?
Well, first of all, I learned this in a real way when I had to do an outpatient therapy, a practicum internship when I was in school. And so I had the client load and I got to see clients and I was helping them with their issues and all this kind of stuff. But what I saw so clearly was every single person, not one of them did I think, oh my God, you need a psychiatrist and you need a diagnosis and you need to go to the hospital right now. So every single person that came in the office, they had a legitimate reason. Like I'll never forget, like one woman was experiencing racism at work. Of course she was depressed. Another guy was a teenager in a family system that was completely broken. Everything he told the family, they would go, his mom, like in secret, she would go tell the whole family and he'd be humiliated. And then he would smoke pot because he couldn't deal with like not feeling accepted in his own family. Another girl had child sexual abuse and she was just having a hard time with her partner, like learning how to be open. Another woman was very secluded, introverted. She was a professor at a university, felt like it was a dead end career, but she just didn't have the self-esteem to think like I could do something else. Like I could follow another dream. So anyway, and there's more that were worsened, that were like scary things to me personally. But I never once thought like these people, their symptoms, oh my God, they need a medication it was like these people have legitimate reasons for every single thing that they're feeling. That was it. And I noticed these people don't have anyone to listen to them and to be present with them and to not judge them or tell them how to fix it and just sit there and handle and let them cry and just be with what they're feeling. Like they don't have a place to do that. So I do see, I'm very like critical of therapy and critical of psychiatry, but if you can be in that space and you're that person for someone, I don't see anything wrong with that. However, that's so rare.
Yeah.
It's just rare. So there's that. These people have legitimate reasons for how they're feeling. Okay, so some of the alternatives, there's like Hearing Voices Network, which is people that hear voices learn to not be so afraid of them and not to try to get rid of them. And like maybe they're there for a reason and maybe they're going to help me through something. Or maybe I can tell them to shut up and I'm not going to listen to you. Like we don't learn those skills. We learn those voices are scary. Get rid of them. There's peer support groups that's tried and true. I'm a part of a veterans peer support group where it's just a bunch of veterans. I don't have to tell them anything. They get it. They can look in my eyes and see where I've been. I don't have to explain myself. If you can find a group like that, it's super helpful. Other things, let me think. Yoga. I mean, YouTube has like a wealth of information about Tai Chi, yoga, meditation, breathing exercises, the Wim Hof method, hot and cold therapy, sauna, gym. I mean, all these things we like to say, like, I hear it all the time. People say, well, I need a mental health day or I need to do self-care. It's like, no, that is your life.
Right.
Your life needs attention and your life needs attention in a holistic way. In your diet, your exercise, community, having friends that listen to you, that believe in you, maybe get rid of the toxic family members and replace them with some people at a church or something. I don't know. So I just think you should look at your truly what I found through my own experience is my life is a holistic wheel, and I have to look at every single corner of it. And when something's off balance, I start getting these sensations that people call symptoms. Like I'm getting anxiety because I'm running a little late this morning and I need to slow down and just slow it down. And like, it's okay if I'm late, or call and cancel it because I'm not feeling up to it today. Or I ate really crappy food yesterday and I'm going to feel it today. Like everything is connected. Your sleep is connected to how you're going to feel tomorrow. Anyway, I sound like I'm rambling, but
you're not rambling. You're just speaking such like truths that need to be heard on every level. I mean, I just feel that if more people had this conversation, this system would start to like kind of disintegrate.
You wouldn't need it.
We wouldn't need it.
I think that's where the power is. I've kind of given up on systemic change. I did a few like legislative things like at Capitol Hill. I tried to, advocate that direction, and it like was falling on deaf ears. They don't want to hear it. They don't want to hear that the mental health system is broken. They don't want to hear that throwing money at a system is not going to help it. Like they just don't. So it's like, to me, this is the best way is to empower patients, people that are people that are off meds. Like we got to find another way. They are not going to save us. Right. If you wait for them to heal you, you'll be dead. Right. It's not going to happen. The real healing is not going to come from there. So you got to find it elsewhere. And I really do believe, I've said this a few times, that everybody has their own magic potion. You have to find that for you. What is the thing that you need? Maybe it's not diet. Maybe your diet's fine. Maybe you need sunshine and better sleep. I don't know what that thing is for you, but you have to find it. Nobody else is going to find it and give it to you. It's just not going to happen.
And shouldn't that be like the course of a prosperous life? Like you finding what you need? One of the things I experienced watching your film, and I was crying so much, and also, watching a lot of the panel discussions because, well, firstly, like, who has allowed me to heal in this way? You know what I mean? Like that film is extremely healing for people who have had abuses with the medications because, nobody talks about it.
No.
So I feel like if more people are then empowered by, say, a movie like this, then just in having a conversation, it lessens the power of the systems that are, that are in place, because you could just start saying, well, I don't really believe in that. I don't know if I believe in that. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, belief systems. Once belief systems change, I just get so upset because they always say it's so scientific. And even the people in the field know it's not.
Yes. Well, just so you know, I learned this in social work school, that a lot of the journal articles that we would read, I was so critical of them because I was like, okay, I got to see, is this real or is this not? But like, think about it like this. All the medications that we are taking, they're only tested 8 to 12 weeks. They're tested on very sanitized groups, meaning people without serious addiction or serious suicide problems or serious trauma. It's like mild to moderate depression. It's very like sanitized. If you start showing like suicidal thoughts within the research study, they will kick you out.
Wow.
They don't want any problems. So it's a very sanitized, clean study group because they have to show their drugs are effective. Remember, who's paying for that study? It's the pharmaceutical company. They'll repeat the study 8 million times to make sure that they get positive results so they can get FDA approval. Right. So that's the first layer. Okay. So then you have all these drugs that are, they don't work at all, and they probably harm people and they don't report that. But then you have psychology studies that are of people with diagnoses who are probably also on meds. And then they'll do their CBT research on this sanitized group without real serious problems. Okay. And so then it's like, it's saying this is evidence-based for depression. Okay. But evidence-based for who? For really sanitized people that are probably white middle class that, are willing to go give themselves up for a research study at a university.
Right.
It's not people with experiencing poverty that are on 5 medications with a diagnosis of schizophrenia and opiate addiction. Right. It's not.
Right.
That is our evidence base. Okay. So unless you fit into that evidence base little tiny segment of the population that says these drugs work for you, that's fine. But most of us are outside of that study group. So you always got to ask yourself, evidence base for who, and who is benefiting from this evidence? Who's making money off of it?
Right. Right. And see, a lot of people aren't privy to that. They don't know that information. They only are told that, okay, well, these guys are the professionals. Yeah. And you don't really understand it until you're in it, until you're already in it, until you're already medicated. And then you're like, oh, wait, like, I don't really like this. How do I get off it? You know? Yeah. Let's talk about social justice with, there are people who are being forcibly, treated and whatnot. But they always go back to this idea of, well, some people do need the medications. And those with serious mental illnesses, they need the medications. And that's what was the forever journey of my life. Because I got labeled so severely, so early, and with so little real reasons. I mean, my reasons were pathetic. They were just like, oh, yeah, you're artistic and what? You broke down. I'm like, okay. So I felt that, okay, I guess I can't be myself. I'm going to be the way you want me to be. How is it that you want me to be? And it was basically the 9-to-5 job. That was one of my mental illness symptoms. I didn't have a 9-to-5 job. I was an artist, and then that was just crazy. And that's the beauty of the film when you see the medicating normal, because it's like, oh, you don't even have to be bipolar schizophrenic. Look, all these normal people will also be.
Yeah, you don't have to be. Yep. No, and one thing I should say is I was considered seriously mentally ill, and it said severe and persistent mental illness in my record. It's everywhere. So, but I'll tell you, those drugs the drugs in the system together made me severely mentally ill. And that's the thing that we don't take into account. Like nowadays, when I see a homeless person on the corner or someone talking to themselves in LA, when I was in LA, I'm like, what medication was he on before this happened? Yeah. How many traumas has he experienced? What was his life like? This world can literally drive you crazy. It's not that it landed in his brain and, oh, boom, now you're mentally ill, surprise. Like, it's not a surprise. People wind up the way they are, how they were treated by others in the system. It's not a mystery to me.
Yeah,
it's
right.
So clear.
Well, that's one of the things that come across when you speak on your panels, because you're just like, if somebody starts, kind of like pontificating and they're, you just like kind of enter, you're like, dudes, like, this is the deal. And it's like, it's so freeing because I'm like, oh my gosh, she just said what I wanted to say.
Thank you so much, Janet. Cause I never get feedback. So it's like,
oh my God.
Like I'm just talking and I'm like, am I too much? Like I judge, that's one of my, I don't know. I'm very self-critical because of psychiatry taught me how to be that way. Like you got to look at every aspect of your life, and if it's not perfect and normal, something's wrong with you. So it's like when I talk, sometimes I'm like, was that too much? Did they take that in? Did I say it nicely enough? Did I say it for them to hear me? Oh no. And then I'll hang up, the panel's over. And then I have this, like, I call it a vulnerability hangover. Like, I'm like, oh God, I said too much. And I wake up the next morning and I start thinking, oh God, did I say too much? Are they not going to like me? Do they think I'm crazy? Do I sound crazy? Like, that's how I'm always thinking because of all those years of being told I was crazy and I have nothing good to say. And how could I possibly know anything about anything? You're just mentally ill. You're nothing, Well,
it's because you're in the field too. I mean, that's an issue. It's like, and that's what's beautiful about it, because you are standing on your own 2 feet and you are saying, like, listen, my voice and is representative of millions of people out there. And it has to be reflected in these conversations. It's so important. You have no idea how important it is. If in any way that you like question yourself, like throw that out the window, because the only way I stop questioning myself is to be around a lot of people like me who didn't give a shit anymore. But you can't do that because you're in the field trying to make a difference, within this dialogue that has to be had among the mental health professionals. Yeah. So the fact that you have a background too, that you went and did it, you went and got the master's, even though you were just like,
I didn't want to. I'm telling you, I didn't want to. But I thought, well, because I used to be like super like, okay, if when I was 8 years old, if you would have said, what degree will you get? It would not have been social work. Right. It would have been like math or science. Like I was really into all the stuff, but I lost those parts of my brain because of all the medications. So it's like, oh, social work, that's easy. And then they'll listen to me. Okay, let me go get a social work degree. It's terrible. It's embarrassing. But so I did not get licensed and I'm not practicing. I just want to make that clear. Like, I don't want to be in the system. I'm trying to work outside of the system to get them to listen to us, to like, even if it's 1%, to just kind of like be open-minded enough to think, well, the patient in front of me, they're really having a hardcore time here. Could it be the meds? Maybe you need to be on less. I'm not telling you to take everybody off of meds. It's not right for anybody or realistic for a lot of people. but just to get a little light in there, to make a little crack and get a little light in, like
Yeah.
you're seeing these people different and they're really okay and there's nothing wrong with them.
It's so important. It's so important that you're voicing what we need to hear. You're like one of the main advocates right now.
Yeah.
There have been times, with the last time I told you, the 2017, when I was forcibly hospitalized very, very, very badly. When I finally got out, I got rid of my old psychiatrist. I went to a new psychiatrist. I sat in front of him. I explained to him that the psychiatrist did not even see me. He just called in. So he didn't even have a conversation with me thinking that there was something wrong with me. He just listened to my parents. Right. So when I told him this, he's like, oh my God, that's so not the right thing to do. Like, you definitely need to look at the psychiatrist. And then we talked a little bit. And then as I'm speaking, he's like, is this your baseline? And I'm like, oh God, he's not listening. He's just watching. He's just watching me talk, trying to see if I talk too fast. By the end, he said to me, and this is when I walked out and I said, that's it. I'm never going to another psychiatrist again. But I was still on these meds. Yeah. And I found a psychiatric nurse. But so they're not you know what I mean? They're just about writing the script. Right. He looked at me on my way out and he said to me, I just want you to know, if I am concerned about any behaviors that I think require hospitalization, I will do the same thing as your other psychiatrist. And I was just like, okay, thank you for telling me.
But think about what you just said. When a psychiatrist or a person in authority tells you that makes you think, okay, I won't tell this person anything that's seriously wrong.
Exactly.
Because I will be in trouble. So it's the same way with the suicide now. Like veterans, I know for sure. Veterans are like, don't you dare tell your psychiatrist that you're suicidal because they're going to take away your rights and put you in the hospital. So we've created a system that is punitive to where people that have serious need for help or somebody to listen to them cannot even trust the professional that they're going to because they don't want their rights taken away. You can help somebody with suicidal thoughts without putting them in the hospital. Right. But guess what? Nobody knows how to do that because they don't care to think. They're so worried about liability. It's like, no, the minute you start acting up, I'm going to put you in a place where I can make sure that you're safe and I won't get in trouble. Right. That's really what's underneath it. But will we admit that? No, we really think we're doing the right thing and you need to get that suicide prevention training. And, it's ridiculous.
But a lot of the times what happens is these people are put on meds and then they become more suicidal.
Yes, that happened to me. And then when you go to your doctor and you say, I'm suicidal, could it be the meds? They're like, oh, no, now you need another drug that also causes suicidal thoughts. You know what I mean? Like, come on, it's ridiculous. It's what do they call that? Like a cat eating its own tail. You know what I mean? Like you're chasing your own tail. Like, okay, I'm suicidal. Is it because of the meds or because of my original condition? I don't know. But the answer to that is take more meds. Yeah. Like, how do you know? Why don't you take them away and see how I do?
Right. But that's never really
that's liability.
Yeah.
No.
This is where the problems are. You also mentioned that we have these incredible abilities to adapt, right? We know that we can adapt. Our bodies change, our chemistry changes. And we know that neuroplasticity is real. Yes. But for some reason, this sense of mental health and mental illness, something that really, is we really don't know where consciousness is, right? It's not like really, it's a non-local thing. We still can kind of agree to that. So if that's the case, like, why is something like that not changeable? You would think that would be the ultimate thing that you can change is your way of thinking and your way of behaving. But because they have this narrative, that's just the way it is.
I just wish they would come around because honestly, the UK is like 10 years ahead of us on the whole withdrawal thing. It's written in their guidelines about take people off slowly, don't prescribe benzos as much as possible. The US, I've asked psychiatrists that are really leading in the field, and I've said, why isn't deprescribing in the APA's agenda for 2022? I don't know, Angie. There's no interest in it. I'm just like, what do you mean there's no interest? These are 1 in 5 Americans is on a psychiatric drug and there's no interest in how people should come off safely. That doesn't make sense to me. It just doesn't.
It's money.
Yeah, it doesn't.
It's money. And America is driven on that more than any other country.
And I think it's more than that. It's going against the grain. Does a psychiatrist, like I learned this from one of the attorneys I interviewed, Michael Baum. It's on our YouTube channel if you want to go back and watch it. But he basically said, when we have whistleblowers that we need on a trial that pull all the the research records from a pharmaceutical company and they're speaking out about it and they have a book about it, we literally have to pay these guys because they're ostracized and they can't work anymore. So to be a whistleblower in the field of psychiatry or in medicine, you have to charge $10,000 to be on a trial just to make a living.
Wow.
So like when you decide to go against the grain or to be a whistleblower, you don't have a job anymore. So these people that are in the guild of psychiatry in the APA that, if to say we need to come up with a field guides of how to get people off meds, you can't do that. You'll be kicked out.
Yeah.
You're going against the what do they call it? Group think. It's a group think.
Right.
We think this way, and anybody who thinks outside of that needs to go. It's the same with patients. This is normal. If you're outside of normal, you need to go. You need to be medicated, whatever. So until that changes, I don't have a lot of hope for the big system change. We have to do this on a patient level, consumer level.
I think so too. I think it's just a grassroots movement, and it's about saying we don't want it anymore.
It's not working for us.
Yeah, it ain't working for us. There's other things that we're going to choose. And then when they see that there's no dollars in it, because a lot less people are, jumping on board, that's what the only thing that changes anything is that people, it's all supply and demand. When there's no more demand for it, then the supplies change.
Yeah.
And dealing with the mental health professionals as you do on these panels and in all these things, I mean, you're tremendous. You're tremendous. And I hope that you can continue, finding the courage to keep moving forward and doing what you're doing, because you have to remember the people watching these things are psychiatric survivors. Sure. And they need to hear this and you sticking up and saying, wait, hold on a second. You know what I mean? Like, that's not cool.
I'm so glad you noticed that I do that, Jen, because if you look at my face on Zoom, sometimes I'm like, oh my God, I roll my eyes and I'm like, just don't do that, I have to wait for an entry point and then wait to, how can I say it nicely without freaking out because I'm so triggered by what that person just said.
You do such a great job. If it was me, I'd be like, you know what I mean? Like you're practice. So professional. Yeah, it's practice. But that you're so, that's what I'm saying. Like your presence is the ultimate. And I think that Lynn's very appreciative of that too.
Yeah, she is. They always say, doing great. Thank you. But before we get off, can I just say that anybody in the audience who hasn't seen Medicating Normal, it's on our website right now for, I think it's like $7. It'll be a little cheaper in the future, but we're also going to be on PBS starting in January. And we have a whole bunch of dates, and I'm putting all the dates as they come on our Facebook page.
Great.
And on our website. So if you can't afford it to watch it now, you can watch it for free on PBS in January. And then our website also has resources for withdrawal. It has a suggested reading list. We have alternatives. We do have a few professionals that we've, I can't say we've like vouched for them, but that we are closely affiliated with that we know are not going to hurt you. However, their prices are exorbitant. So unless you can like really afford someone to help you through the withdrawal process, there is a couple listed there. And then there's peer support groups that are free that are listed there, and tons of wisdom about getting off drugs. And like you said, Jen, it took me 10 years before I started tapering the first drug till I was completely off.
Yeah.
Not something to be done overnight. Don't ever cold turkey anything. Please do your research. Read as much as you can. Watch as many YouTube videos as you can if you can't read, because you have to be super educated on this before you take this over. And I would be remiss if I didn't say that. But yes, at the end of the film, there's a sentence that says, before you withdraw, make sure you do your research about tapering or find a knowledgeable health professional that can help you. So I don't ever want to say, just ask your doctor, because most of them have no clue.
Yeah.
But you got to do your own research. You have to be your own advocate. You have to go at your own rate. This is your journey. Your body is going to have to withstand the withdrawal symptoms. So do your research, please. I can't say it hard enough.
Absolutely. And what is the website?
Our website is medicatingnormal.com, and we're on all the social media platforms, YouTube channel. If you want to watch any of the panel discussions that Jen's talking about, they're all on the YouTube channel. Just search Medicating Normal and you'll see all of our presence all over.
Great YouTube channel. Amazing people, everybody in the field who is really trying to be vocal about this. It's such a great treasury of resources. So definitely check it out, people. It's monumental. I mean, really, truly, this is really the first of its kind. And me and everybody in the psych survivor movement, we are jumping on board. We're thrilled and humbled that you're coming forward and being our advocate.
Thank you. I'm trying my best. I do it for all of you. I mean, I think about you guys every day, like how hard it was going through that. And I mean, I'm not on the other side by any means, but yeah, I'm glad that I could be in spaces where our voices are needed to be heard.
Yes, absolutely. Angie, thank you so much for coming and talking and really giving us such an amazing insight and your, knowledgeable wisdom. I'm so thankful that you could join us. Thank you.
Thank you, Jen, for having me. This was an awesome conversation.
Thanks for listening to Not As Crazy As You Think, and don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel. And remember, mental health is attainable for anyone, especially those labeled with mental illness. Until next time, peace out.